the purses for Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz. Wilder got $2.1 million and Ortiz got $500,000. It is pretty standard procedure these days for the purses to be publicly revealed for these major fight cards in the United States. A lot of people are calling for it to happen in the UK as well. They like the transparency and they're suspicious of why there isn't this kind of transparency on Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren cards in the UK. They like the American way of doing things. And I mean, I don't really feel no way about it, to be honest. If people want to keep the purses private, I've got no issue with it. That's an issue for the fighters at the end of the day. The fighters in Britain know what their contemporaries in the United States are getting. And if they don't think they're getting what they should be getting, they can take it up with their promoter. So, I don't necessarily have an issue with them keeping it private per se, because, again, it's an issue for the fighter. As long as the fighter's not getting ripped off, that's my main concern. If the fighter's not getting ripped off and he knows what his contemporaries in the USA are getting so he can compare his own purse to that, then I'm good with that, etc. But still, Wilder, 2.1 million in English money, that's going to be what, like 1.8, maybe 1.7 million pounds. And Luis Ortiz getting 500 grand, that's like what, 350 in UK money. And when you take tax out of it, when you take training costs, paying manager, paying the trainer, paying the promoter, Ortiz will be lucky to clear what, 250 grand, 200 grand maybe. And that's in American dollars. So you're talking about maybe 150 grand in UK pounds that Ortiz would have got for that. So when you compare that to the kind of money they're getting in the United Kingdom for Anthony Joshua fights, it's night and day. Luis Ortiz is advised by Al Heyman. He's a PBC guy. And he was mandatory challenger for Anthony Joshua. He gave up his mandatory position and took on Deontay Wilder instead for a hell of a lot less money than he would have got for facing Anthony Joshua as mandatory challenger. You have to question why he did that. Who advised him to do that? Was it all down to Al Heyman? Did he go against what Al Heyman said? At the end of the day, Wilder Ortiz was an in-house Al Heyman affair. Maybe Ortiz was just that confident that he could beat Deontay Wilder, then step to the negotiating table against Anthony Joshua as a champion and negotiate a lot more money. If he did do that, the gamble obviously didn't pay off. Maybe he felt like he'd probably lose against Anthony Joshua, so he thought, you know what? Let me beat Wilder, then go fight Joshua. And if I'm going to lose, then at least I'm going to get this big payday. Whatever the case may be, it's a hell of a lot more than the average Joe is going to earn in a year. But for Luis Ortiz to only make 500 grand US dollars for a heavyweight title challenge, it's not exactly life-changing sum of money for a professional prize fighter at the top level. And Deontay Wilder as well, as a he's a long-reigning heavyweight champion now, Deontay Wilder. Is this his biggest purse that he's received so far? I suspect that it is. Correct me if I'm wrong, $2.1 million. Again, compared to what Joshua's getting, is chicken change. So at the negotiating table, if Wilder is not talking realistic numbers, then does he really want the fight? Because people are saying Joshua's ducking the fight. Joshua's getting what, 20 million a fight? Wilder's getting 2 million and Wilder wants 50-50? Really? Is that realistic, people? Is that somebody who really wants to fight right now when he's talking about 50-50? Joseph Parker ain't talking about 50-50. He took, what was it, 35 in the end, or 32 or something like that, 32%, and let Joshua take the rest? That's realistic. And Wilder is a bigger name than a Joseph Parker, I would say, globally. So, 60-40 maybe. But when man's talking about 50-50, come on. To me, that's just not realistic at all. I do believe that Deontay Wilder believes in himself 100%. But I'm not sure whether the people around him, his management, are keeping it 100% with him when it comes to making the Joshua fight. He might believe that his team are really trying to make the fight and feeding him certain information, cherry-picked information. But, I think that there's an understanding, whether it's, unsaid or not, between Team Joshua and Team Wilder, that the fight needs to be built a little bit more. I think there's an understanding. Despite all the trash talk between the two camps, I think both camps understand the fight needs to be built a little bit more, if they're going to have it in the States anyway, so they can capitalize financially. I know it's frustrating for us fans. We just want to see the fight. We don't care about what these guys are getting paid. They're getting paid enough. I'm sure they're doing well. They're going to be able to feed their families for generations to come. We just want to see them get in the ring and trade blows. But at the same time, boxing is a business. This is prize fighting. So when we want to see these fights, we have to understand there are going to be certain things that do delay a fight getting made. And hopefully not, neither of these guys loses before the unification takes place. Joseph Parker's going to be looking to throw a big spanner in the works and not allow the fight to take place by beating Joshua. But if he doesn't manage to do that, then hopefully Wilder can stay unbeaten and we'll get to see this big unification clash later on in 2018. So yeah, I'm not really one to be talking about money and watching a guy's pockets and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to money potentially getting in the way of a fight, and when it comes to a guy asking for unrealistic percentages, this is where I have to address the purse situation and the money. Because if you're only getting a fraction of what your opponent gets, if you're only getting, 10% of what he gets or 5% of what he normally gets, then how can you be asking for 50-50? Do you really want the fight? Do your team really want the fight when they're asking for stuff like that? I know in negotiations, you start high and then you end up having to go down a little bit to make it. So maybe that's what it is. Anyway, let me stop waffling here. Let me know how you feel about the situation. I'm out.